Alright guys, this one's another one of those. It's a collection of several things that were basically the same and I was too tired slash lazy slash whatever to do it all. There were a few of these I only caught like the final hour or so, something like that. And then I think there was one that I was lucky to even get that much because, so for some reason yesterday a lot of my bots on Discord weren't doing their bot things, and one of them was the one that alerts me to streams. So when I woke up between, you know, sleeping and waking up, as you do when you're trying to friggin' sleep, I guess, I checked my phone in between to check the time, for one, and two, to check if there's been any streams. It said there weren't any, so I went peacefully back to sleep, and it turned out there was one. Whoops. So by the time I saw the alert in the server itself, I was like, oh great. Well, it's probably done by now. There was some time to it, but thankfully it was another one of the directional attack streams, and so I was like, alright, well, we'll just do the final highlight and we're done with that. Because the last several streams have been the directional attack ones, and they look similar enough, it's just... what's the point? It's like doing yet another series of walking ones step by step, and yeah, no, not gonna do it. So to save some of my sanity, what little I have left, I just did a little highlight reel of each one, which you saw at the start, and then I saw that the one today had a sparring, a standing while sparring animation thing. So that one's new. So here we go again. But first, I'll briefly say the prior directional attack ones, frankly, again, they're all basically the same. I mean, there are differences, of course, you can see it, because, you know, different directions and all that, but deep down, they're basically the same, so no comment on those. I already commented on the directional thing at the start, said all my thoughts there, I don't need to say it again. So, let's do the standing while sparring one. This one was a lot of feet adjustments, like, an insane amount of feet adjustments. It was mostly feet. Well, feet, legs. There was a little bit of the shoulders and hips, but not nearly as much. You'll see at the start a lot of what he was up to, and then I started to cut it more and more and more because it was the same thing again and again and again and again, and I've said repeatedly, I don't want to have too much of the same stuff in here or else it gets incredibly boring. It's like, well, didn't I just see this a half hour ago? Why am I still watching it another half hour later? What gives? Yeah, no, it's easier on time and easier on sanity to do that. There was also a brief glimpse of the gore thingy-majiggy for Dibble. And there was also a stats table of some sort. I let that stats one play off in real time because it was pretty brief. Stat people can go stare at that. I don't even think there were names attached to it, but it's there. You guys can figure it out. The rest of it was back to shoulder rotations, leg stuff. I think he did a little bit with the head at some point, but honestly it was a lot of stuff with the feet and stuff with the wavy line menu thing. So yeah, there was a lot of chunks that I got to chop because it was the same thing repeatedly, and even just skimming it for me, it was such a slog, so I didn't want to subject you guys to that. I started doing highlight reels as best I could, chopping out a lot of the stuff in between. Yeah, you guys get the idea. It's condensed leggy leg. That's a lot of what it was today. However, sparring animation, that means they are working on the thing, which frankly I didn't expect anytime soon, so there you go. I wonder if that was the fancy thing that Kiss had mentioned in the dev blog or not. Although I think she was referring to an attack there, so probably not. It's probably not, but yeah, it means they're working on it, which is nice. They kept talking about it and saying it would be a thing eventually. But we know eventually could be 2 weeks, could be 2 days, it could be 2 years. We do not know with this thing, so yeah, it's nice to see it in the works now. Overall streamage, quality-age, the last several have been, like I said, the same thing. I've just chopped a whole bunch off and done the final bit. And then with this one, I went through as usual. It was a lot with the legs, as I said before. A lot of samey stuff. It was... I mean, I guess you could... It's more interesting than a walk because there's more going on, I suppose. But it's still pretty up there with a walk, because there wasn't a whole lot and it was the same stuff again and again. Which, I mean, you're gonna get a lot of anyway, but he was able to modify a walking animation to sort of suit what he needed, so there wasn't a whole lot needing to be done with things like the tail and the head. I mean, he still did tweak them, but it was so subtle that honestly I missed where he did it. So yeah. Anyway, it was there, I suppose. I mean, again, the quadrupedal ones are more interesting to watch. Like the way the legs move, the way he has to handle each leg. But that also means there's 4 times the leg to stare at when he's making these adjustments. So yeah, there was a lot that had to be cut. Like, I tried to keep a good amount in, as you'll see. Like, there's still a lot of leggy movement going on and all that. But imagine that, but like 4 times more, because oh gosh, most of the stream was the sparring thing. He did the attack directional thing at the start, and I don't know if he was finishing up one from yesterday or if he did a fresh one. But most of it was the sparring thing, which does look really cool. I mean, I like how it looks. I imagine this is, them, sizing each other up, and they're going to be going in a circle or whatever, the sidesteppy thing that deer and whatnot will do sometimes. But I do not know for sure. There wasn't any actual, head jerking and stuff as if they're locking horns or anything. It was just, the circling, intimidation sort of thing. But it does look cool. I like it. It is neat. Watching the process, though, was not quite as fun. Enjoy it as I do with the quadrupeds. It's still, I mean, as I said, it was just a lot of leg. A whole lot. As fun as it is, it's it's a lot of the same stuff, so there you go. But that should cover that stream stuff. Woohoo! He doesn't always stream on Friday, so I guess we'll see what happens. I'm personally hoping he doesn't, because I would like to take a day where I don't have to cut through a stream and figure out what to do. Because the other ones, even though I did chop them to that point, I was very conflicted on it. Because I've said before, I mean, it's hard to decide what goes in, what goes out. Because I don't want the samey stuff. But at the same time, you're going to get inevitably samey stuff, because, I mean, it's animation, that's just how it goes. But it was 3 days, if I recall, of the exact same sort of stream, and I was like, oh boy, this is gonna be boring. If it's boring for me, it's probably gonna be boring for you guys, because, oh gosh, wading through it. I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna spare myself the heartache and try to take a little bit of time, but then you end up having to do other stuff, and yeah, it goes and goes. But today was a little bit easier. Because it was so much of the same stuff, I was able to cut it shorter. Believe it or not, I do try to get these as short as I possibly can, because it's less work for me. It really is. Because then I have to do the commentation over it, and even though I don't move the guy anymore, I try to, double it. And I haven't been recording as much lately because I'm behind on the other stuff I've been editing, and so scrounging up footage is a little bit more difficult. I could leave it blank, but that's kind of lame, so I try not to leave it blank. Then you'll notice I've been using Sons of the Forest, and I haven't actually played that game in quite some time. So it's my backlog of footage. However, I also have to be sure that I don't include any fights or anything like that, because then I have to mark the whole video as being violent, even though it's not, really. And then you start to run into, well, YouTube sometimes hides those kinds of videos, well, sometimes YouTube doesn't like those kinds of videos, etc., etc. It goes on and on. So I try to have it just be, building-based stuff, wandering around, exploring, and you'll notice it does cut when a cannibal shows up, and then suddenly there's a body on the floor, and it's like, gee, I wonder how that happened. I couldn't imagine. I just don't know. YouTube's a mystery. It gets very, very finicky when it comes to even video game violence. And I've heard things about, things flagged as being violent as being hidden sometimes. And I'm like, well, that's kind of goes against the point of making these now, doesn't it? So yeah, I try not to include that sort of stuff in there, which is a lot of the reason why I use the IDV footage, because it's not at all violent. It's a friggin' Chinese game, and they're so harsh on censorship that you know how it is. They definitely do not have any sort of violence in there at all, so it is completely safe. I never have to worry about anything like that, etc., etc. The Isle, yeah, I wouldn't call it violent in my eyes, but in the eyes of YouTube, I mean, it considers anything that shows blood to be violent. So I imagine even Wolf Quest would get to that point, even though it's, honestly, it's pretty darn G-rated compared to everything else, really. So I try to keep it, you know, lame as humanly possible, I suppose you could say. But anyway, that should hopefully do it for this one. I hope, because, yeah, I need to get doing other stuff. But thank you guys for sticking around. I hope everything's been doing well. It looks like the it looks like one of the branches, I think was the internal branch, updated today for the first time in about 10 days, so maybe that's a good sign. Maybe there'll be some sort of movement. We'll see, I guess. But have a great day, night, whatever time it is when you see this, and goodbye.
Thank you.
What do I owe you? Nothing. It's for free. Free?